נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו 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 נרננה, לכו 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 נרננה, כי אל גדול לאדוני ומלך גדול על כל אלוהים, אשר בידו מחקרי הארץ ותועפות ההרים לו. לכו 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 נרננה, או לכו 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 נרננה, אשר לא היה והוא עשהו, ויבש ידיו יצרו. בואו נשתחווה ונכרע, נברכה לפני אדוני עושנו. לכו 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 נרננה, לכו 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 נרננה, כי הוא אלוהינו ואנחנו אמר איתו, וצאן ידו היום בקולו תשמעו. לכו 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 נרננה, לכו 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 נרננה, אל תקשו לבבכם כי מריבה כיום מסע במדבר, אשר ניסוני אבותיכם בחנוני גם ראו פועלי. לכו 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 נרננה, או לכו 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 נרננה. 40 שנה קוד בדור במערם טוען לבבהם, הם לא ידעו דרכי, אשר נשבעתי באפי מבואן אל מנוחתי.
Page 21, Mizmor David, Psalm 29.
Imagine this was in tune. Not in tune. Mizmor LeDavid, Havu l'Adonai ben Elim, Havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Havu l'Adonai kevod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai be'adrat kodesh, kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod yirim, Adonai al mayim, mayim rabim, kol Adonai v'koach, kol Adonai ve'adar, shomer Adonai shomer azim, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון, וסריון כמו בן רמים. כל אדוני חוצה להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, כל אדוני יכול לילות ויחשוף יערות, ובחלו כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני על המבול ישב וישב, אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. איי 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 איי
Turn to page 23. The Kabbalat Shabbat service, the whole first section of the service before we get to the evening part of the service, it begins with Baruch Hu, was really a creation of this mystical community in Tzfat in the 15th, 16th century, 16th century actually. And of course, one of the centerpieces of Kabbalat Shabbat is our favorite, which is L'Chadodi. But I must tell you, L'Chadodi is actually a very complicated poem. It's not that easy to understand all of the nuances. So we start actually with that first stanza. The first stanza, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Observe and remember were uttered as one. What's being referred to here? What's being referred to is the two versions of the Ten Commandments. One occurs in the book of Exodus, and one occurs in the book of Deuteronomy. They are very similar, and yet they're not the same, which led to certain accusations that we're talking here, in even evidences in the Torah of dualism. So here the emphasis is no. We may have a different version in Exodus from Deuteronomy, and they're slightly different one to the other, but they are actually one and the same. Observe and remember. Exodus and Deuteronomy were uttered as one. We heard it thus from a singular one, not dualism, not two gods, one God. God's name is one, and God is one, renowned with honor and deserving of praise. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad l'chadodi. How many paragraphs are we going to do?
We're going to do the first two and the last two.
And the last two, okay.
Or we can do all 12,000. No. Lechadodi likra kala penei Shabbat nekavela. Lechadodi likra kala penei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad ishmianu elam מיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ותפארת ולתהילה לאחד הודי לקרא קלה בני שבת נקבלה לאחד הודי לקרא קלה בני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלחקים מקור הברכה בראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודים לקרא קלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודים לקרא קלה בני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תריצי על יד איש בן פצי ונשמחה ונגילה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה בני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך אמוני ים סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה בני שבת נקבלה.
My apologies for giving you the wrong page number.
Oh, They figured it out.
They figured it out, yes. So we turn to page, where are we, page 27?
Yeah, although sometimes we acknowledge the 5 people who have passed away for the last 5 weeks ago. We don't have a condolence
Okay.
prayer today, but we'd like to acknowledge people who are on our 5-week prayer list. Selwyn Harry Robinson, Zichrono Livracha, Sue Schwartz, Stanley Hodes, Craig Ackerson, and Robert Hirsch. May their memories be a blessing. And now, Psalm 92, which is on page something.
Page 27.
You know, again, ever since October 7th, when I got to this, I had a hard time doing the melody that I've been using quite a bit since I got here, because it's What a Wonderful World. And I said, how can I do this? And I said, well, this is a room for prayer. May it be a wonderful world. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור, כי שימחתני אדוני בפעוליך במעשה ידיך רנן, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני. ישפר לא ידע, זו בזרוח רשעים, כמו הסבט. אדוני, הנה באחד מהם.
הנה אוהביך אדוני, הנה אוהביך יאבדו, יפרדו כל פועלי אבן.
פקמים הרעים תשמענה אוזני.
בשמן רענן, ותביטני בשורי, וקמים עלי מרעים, ישמענה אוזני.
Tzaddik on page 28. Tzaddik atamar yifrach, kerez balevanon yizke, shetolim bevet Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenovon beseva, deshenim veralanim iyo leagid, ki yashar Adonai tzuri velo avlata, Adonai malakim lavesh. עדותיך נמנו מאוד לביתך נא וקודש אדוני לאורך ימים.
So why am I here tonight? Rabbi Kosak is on vacation, and not on vacation, on sabbatical. And Rabbi Posen has a program the last Friday night of each month with young families. So she asked me, both for this month and for next month, if I would be here on Friday night. So here I am. Almost not, but here I am. So what have I really learned about being in retirement? Well, the first thing I learned is that August is a very nice month. I never knew that August was a nice month because August is meshuggah when you're a congregational rabbi and preparing for the year and preparing for the high holidays. I also learned a few things. I also learned that when you're retired, you can prepare for things. You have enough time to, rather than running from writing and officiating and more writing and going to meetings, you really have a little time to prepare for things, that rather than having 6 things on your agenda for the day, you might have 2 or 3. Today, I only had 1 thing on my agenda, and that was to be here tonight, and that almost didn't happen. So let me share with you thoughts that I had prepared for tonight. When I arrived in Portland, and a family told me that they belonged to the temple, what should I have assumed? Right? That they were Beth Israel. That's right. Because they belong to the temple. Do you know it's not called the Temple Beth Israel? Were you aware of that? If you go to their website, nowhere on the website does it say Temple Beth Israel. It says Congregation Beth Israel. That there's a change. Now, I assume that still some of the members refer to it as the temple. Well, we never were a temple. We were never Temple Neve Shalom. We were always the synagogue or Congregation Neve Shalom. Is there a difference between calling a Jewish house of worship temple or calling it synagogue, or are the 2 terms interchangeable? I wanted to raise this subject because tomorrow we read Parshat Teruma. Teruma is a dramatic change in the book of Exodus. Almost everything you know about the book of Exodus occurs in the first half, or the first 60%. Moses is born. Moses is saved by Pharaoh's daughter. Moses grows up. Moses has his confrontation with an Egyptian slave. Moses sees God at the burning bush. God tells Moses to go back to Egypt. We have the confrontation between Moses and Pharaoh. There are 10 plagues. Eventually, we have the Exodus. The people leave. They cross the Red Sea. They come to Mount Sinai. They receive the 10 Commandments. All of that occurs in the first half of the book of Exodus. What happens in the second half? Actually, the last 40%, which begins tomorrow with Parshat Teruma. It's much less exciting than the first half, because beginning with Parshat Teruma, there are now directions for how to build a sanctuary in the desert. Details after details about materials and colors and sizes. And the only other thing that we have is what kinds of garments did the priests wear, especially the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, with a mitre and a belt and all that's described in great detail now in the second half of the book of Exodus. The only dramatic thing that happens in the second book of Exodus is the story of the golden calf. That's in the second part as well. But this second part is talking now about building and construction. The second half, so how do the rabbis really explain what this second half is all about? The second half, many of the rabbis explain, is the people experienced God at Mount Sinai. how could they possibly leave Mount Sinai, where they experienced God? So they build a sanctuary in the desert, in a sense where we're told, "V'shachanti b'tocho," that God dwells in that sanctuary or among the people, and the people in that sanctuary now take God with them for the next 38 years in the desert. It's called an Ohel Moed, a tent of meeting, or a tabernacle. That's the term that's used in the Torah for what this structure was, and who functioned in the sanctuary in the desert. The priests, the Kohanim, the descendants of the tribe of Levi, or the descendants actually of Aaron the priest, and so this becomes the first structure that they take with them for 40 years in the desert, and that's the structure that they keep as they enter the promised land until King Solomon. What happens with King Solomon? King Solomon builds the first Beit HaMikdash. King Solomon builds the first temple. Now we always think of the temple. It was actually a little tiny structure that was built in Jerusalem, and that structure exists for about 400 years until it's destroyed in the year 586 by the Babylonians, who now take the people and into exile into Babylonia. I'm going to get back to that in a minute, because soon the Babylonians themselves are conquered by the Persians. And the Persians, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, the Persians now allow the Jews to return to their land. Most of them don't go back. Only some of them go back. But what's the incentive for going back? They're going to rebuild the temple. And it's a long struggle, but now they start to build what becomes the second temple. In Jerusalem, on the same spot where the first temple was built, and that's a slightly bigger structure, but now it becomes a grand structure when Herod becomes king, and Herod now expands the temple into a very large structure. That structure from the time of Herod continues to exist until the Romans. Now again, in this second temple, what's the main thing that happens in the first temple and the second temple? Sacrifices. Animal sacrifices and other kinds of meal offerings. Who functions in the temple, in the first temple and the second temple? Again, the Kohanim. We got any rabbis yet? Rabbis don't exist yet. Rabbis haven't been invented yet. So in the second temple, again, the centerpiece are the sacrifices that are offered of various kinds, that people bring sacrifices, and the Kohanim offer them up to God. The second temple now is destroyed in the year 70 by the Romans. And what happens after the second temple is destroyed? People prepare for a third temple. They prepare for so much that we read in the Talmud that there were rabbis after the destruction of the second temple who put in IOUs for the sacrifices that they weren't able to offer. They say, once the third temple is built, we will offer the sacrifices that we continue to owe. When was the third temple built? No third temple. Third temple never gets built, except that there is in our prayer book. We still have prayers hoping for the rebuilding of the third temple, which was changed actually in the conservative prayer book, but that's subject for another time. But our prayers continue to hope from the year 70 to the year 2025, still hoping for the rebuilding of the temple. What would happen in the new temple? We'd go back to doing all the things that were done in the first and second temple, which is offering the sacrifice of animals. And in fact, there is a group, perhaps more than one group, in Jerusalem that are preparing to this right now, preparing to continue with, for when the temple is rebuilt, that sacrifices will be. I got to tell you, I'm not hoping for that day, for the introduction of sacrifices. So what's been happening since the year 70 to this day? Well, at some point, a new invention was created, a new invention that was called a synagogue. We think that actually the synagogue was invented, a Greek word, by the way. We think that the synagogue was invented after the destruction of the first temple, when Jews were exiled to Babylonia, and they had no way to observe any practice. So they invented this new structure, which was where the Kohanim were not, the priests were not the center, and perhaps we have the beginnings of a new structure of rabbis, of learned people. Were there prayer services? We don't know. Was there learning in these? We don't really know what went on in this community center, which became known as a Beit Tfilah, a house of prayer, a Beit Am, a gathering place, and a place for study. We are the beneficiaries of that whole development. That synagogues are not a continuation of the temple, because there was only one temple and then a second temple. We're a synagogue. So what does it mean when the Reform movement decided that they would call their synagogue temple? There was a philosophical statement to call their synagogue the temple, because we have no temples anymore. Or we're hoping that someday that temple was a centerpiece in one place in Jerusalem. Synagogues are all over. Synagogues are wherever Jews gather. In a sense, they were making a philosophical statement saying, we're not praying for the centrality of Jerusalem. And we are not praying for the centrality of sacrifices. And we are not praying for the centrality of returning to the ancient temple. We are claiming that where we are here, wherever we're living, that is the temple. And so it was a very important philosophical statement that the early Reform movement was making in referring to their synagogue as temple. Now, my former synagogue in Briarcliff Manor, in my first synagogue in Hackensack, New Jersey, was called Temple Bethel. Now, that was a conservative synagogue. Why did the conservative synagogue called Temple Bethel? I think because they were ignorant. They were ignorant of this history, ignorant of this development. So let me ask you, why is Temple Beth Israel no longer Temple Beth Israel? It's now, I bet if you ask many people that you know who belong to Beth Israel, if it's still the temple, I would guess most of the congregants would say, well, of course it's the temple. You can't find the word on their website. So I wrote to Rabbi Kahana, and I said, how did that change take place? And he said, when I came 18, he responded to me, not with a full response about the philosophical change, but he said, when I came, it was one of my decisions to change. When I first came here 18 years ago, he said, I wanted the change so that it was more of an emphasis on community. That's interesting. I haven't finished my conversation yet with Rabbi Kahana, but we'll do that. So that here you have, in a sense, a whole history of Jewish religious buildings. Jewish religious buildings that begin with a temple, with a tent in the desert. That tent in the desert becomes a single structure in Jerusalem, becomes the temple. The temple, which is destroyed about a generation later, we have the beginnings of that structure. It becomes expanded greatly. Those of you, how many of you have been to Jerusalem? How many have been to Jerusalem? Okay, so when you're Jerusalem, you were at the Temple Mount, and the side of the Temple Mount, you have the Western Wall. The Western Wall was the wall that Herod built that was a huge structure around the top of the mountain. The Western Wall is only one small piece of that, and on top of that structure was the first temple and Herod's expanded second temple, and ever since then, probably beginning between first temple and second temple, we changed our form of worship to what we call now a synagogue. So I hope that's sort of of interest of how our buildings changed. And so when you come to synagogue tomorrow, you'll all be here tomorrow, right? When you come to synagogue tomorrow, and we read we read Parshat Teruma, and you'll see about what they did at the beginning was they needed to collect gifts. They collected gifts from all the people, and interestingly, we read something amazing happened. Maybe the only time in Jewish history. They collected gifts. People were so generous that at some point they said, "Stop. We don't want any more gifts." Past president, we ever done that before? No, we never said to donors too much. Well, you can't remember. Well, that happened. That amazing event happened in the Torah, that people were too generous, and they told the people that they had to that they should stop giving. So let's turn back to our Sidurim, and let me ask everybody to turn to page 39A. And we ask everyone please to stand for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch et Adonai mevorach.
Baruch Adonai mevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai melech haolam.
You may be seated.
מעביר יום מביא לילה, מבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב והרבים.
840,
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה. עבדך תסיר עמנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך. והים שמעו תשמעו אישה אנוכי אתכם היום לאהבה. ושמתם דברי אלי עליך וכן השאר. ויאמר משה לאמור, בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו תזכיר והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו ושמתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחריכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו עשיתם כל מצוותי ואתם קדושים אליכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Page 44. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים בני ישראל, לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אל מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה זה ליאנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר יפדה אדוני את יעקב גאלו מיד חזק עמנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום לשלום ועמידנו מלכנו לחיים לחיים ופרוס עלינו סוכה שלומך 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 ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך מלפניך והושיענו למען שמך והגן בעדנו יסר מעלינו אויב דבר וחרב ורע ויגון להשכיבנו לשלום שלום והסר שטן מלפנינו לפנינו לפנינו ומאחרינו אחרינו 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 ובצל כנפיך תסתירנו 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 כי אלה שומרנו 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 ומצילנו אתה כי אלה מלך השכיבנו, השכיבנו לשלום. שלום, ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ושלום מעתה ועד עולם, ופרוס עלינו סוגת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוגת שלום עלינו וכל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. יתגדל ויתקדש שמר רבה, ועל דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. ישמר רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ותדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך דקודשה בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושכינתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן.
Silent Amidah that begins on page 47. This is also Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh Adar. Rosh Chodesh Adar means Purim is coming. So Rosh Chodesh, there's an additional paragraph for Rosh Chodesh that you'll see in small type on page 50. So the Amidah pages 47 to 52.
Beis Hamikdash. Did you get it? Sheibanei Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash.
I don't know, do we want that?
based on your Dvar Torah. Okay. This then.
So I'm sure that you're all familiar with the fact that our calendar is a lunar calendar. Let me remind you, remember those calendars that you got when you were, I haven't seen them in a very long time. You got them usually at the butcher, or right at the bottom, it showed you when the new moon was, and the first quarter, and the full moon, and every month was different. You don't need that in the Jewish calendar or the Muslim calendar, because both of them are lunar calendars. So this is Rosh Chodesh. So I haven't looked myself. When you go home tonight, take a look. It should be a brand new moon. The first piece of the new moon. When we get to the 15th of the month, we will have a full moon. So take a look outside and see if it still works all these thousands of years. What's that? And you see a few planets too. It's only if it's a clear sky tonight. We'll have to see if it's a clear sky. So we're, in many ways, our whole Jewish community was identified with the Bubas, right? Was that the name of the family? Bibas. With the Bibas family, with a husband who mourned over the loss of his wife and his two children. He's alive, and his wife and children were buried this week. But in addition, this week there were another 4 hostages whose bones were returned because they had died, and now we're in negotiations to try and see to it that the ceasefire can continue, and that the rest of the hostages can be returned. So if you look on your program sheet, on the bottom you'll see a prayer, Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael.
Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, Achenu Kol Beit Yisrael, הנתונים בצרה ובשביה, העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם עליהם ויוציאם מצרה לרווחה ומאפלה לאורה ומשילון מגאולה שתה בגלה ובזמן קריב ובזמן קריב ונאמר Amen.
Our brethren, the entire house of Israel, who are in distress and captivity, those who stand between the sea and the dry land, and may the Almighty have mercy on them and bring them from distress to relief, from darkness to light, from bondage to redemption, speedily and soon.
Amen. Magen Avot. 53.
Page 53.
The last paragraph, Magen Avot. מגן אבות בדברו מחיה מתים במאמרו האל הקדוש אין כמוהו לילה 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 המניח ברוך לעמו ביום שבת קודשו, כי בם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד בערם ופחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד. לילה 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 ועונה ברכות אל ההודעות, אדון השלום מקדש השבת, וברך שביעי ומניח בקדושה, לעמד ושני עונג זכר למעשה ונשית. לילה 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 and Kaddish.
Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Praise thou, O Lord of God, who makes the Shabbat holy.
Amen.
Kaddish Shalom, page 54.
יתגדל וקדש שמר רבה, בעלמא דיברה, כאילו תבריך מלכותה, וחייכון ובימכון, וחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלה וזמן קריב מרו, אמן. יהא שמר רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך משתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי תקודשה בריחו לעילא, מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ומרו, אמן. תתקבל צאות האור ובתון תכל ישראל, קודם אבוהון דבי שמיה מרו, אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו וכל ישראל מרו, אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו וכל ישראל, וכל יושבי תבל ויאמרו אמן.
Ask everyone please to stand for the Kiddush, page 55.
Would you like to do it? In the ancient times, the Levites would do the grunt work to prepare it for their superiors, the Kohanim. Speaking of the older temple days.
I'm not a Kohen.
You're not a Kohen and I'm not a Levite. It's just a lesson.
My wife is a daughter of a Levite. My grandmother was a Bat Kohen. My grandfather was a Bat Levi. I'm just a Yisrael. But you see, the Kohanim, which took over the whole ritual of sacrifice, and what's left for the Kohanim?
First Aliyah.
They get the first aliyah, right? That's what's left. Oh, and they bless the congregation with the Birkat Kohanim, which happens on all major holidays, where they stand in front of the congregation, and in Jerusalem it happens every single week. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim, Kivanu Acharta, Yotanu Kidashta, Mikol Hamim, B'Shabbat Kodshecha, B'Ahava Uratzon, Inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. You may be seated. No?
And back up again. Aleinu. We have Aleinu.
No, you can be seated for a
Seated?
second.
All right. No, I say no.
The story that I think of probably every single week is the story of the rabbi, happened to be a Reform rabbi, but that shouldn't matter. The Reform rabbi who came to visit his teenagers who were staying at a kibbutz in Israel. And of course, the rabbi was invited on Friday night to come and recite Kiddush. Now, in a non-religious kibbutz, they will do Kiddush. Even so, you may have members of the kibbutz that have cigarettes hanging out right at the same time. But so he knew he did the Kiddush every single week. But there he is in front of the whole kibbutz with his teenagers, and as you would have it, he didn't have the text in front of him, and all of a sudden, as could happen to any one of us, he draws a blank. And everybody, of course, the members of the kibbutz are Reform rabbi. So the lesson is, if you're going to do something like the Kiddush, have the text there. So in case you all of a sudden go blank, which can happen to any one of us, you have the text to. So now, everybody, please stand for the Aleda.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שעושה שם את הארץ. אין עוד אלוהינו לפניך אלוהינו ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We ask those who are observing your outside to remain standing, and if you could share who you're saying your outside for. For your mom. Okay, so we'll say we'll say Kaddish together on page 58. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbo mavorach le'olam u'me'elmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata damiron be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us and to all Israel and to all humanity. And let us say, Amen. Amen. Announcements. Okay, we have announcements. We have a food collection for Neighborhood House and through Southwest Hope campaign, which is March 1st through April 30th. Drop off at the administration. In ink it says, check online for most needed items. So this is, I can't think of anything that's more worthwhile than dealing with the issue of hunger. And as a result, I've been involved with issues of hunger for a long time. I'm chair of the Rabbinical Assembly Food Justice Committee, there's no reason that we have hunger in America. Tat Shabbat is this is tomorrow, March 1st, and the 15th from 10:30 to 11:30, and Kiddush Club also for little older kids, March 1st and 15th from 10:30 to 11:30. Was there more? Oh, let's see. So this is this is something I'm particularly involved with as well. Sunday, March 8th. I thought Sunday was March 9th. Is Sunday, March 8th or March 9th? 9th. Okay, it's a mistake here. Sunday, March 9th at 10 a.m. I want you all to either come to the synagogue or you can do it online, because Israel 360 is doing a program, Portland Voices from Israel. 4 individuals, 2 adults and 2 young adults are going to be speaking from Israel, all 4 of whom grew up here or were involved in their growing up here at Neve Shalom and made Aliyah. 2 of those young people in particular am particularly close with. One is a young woman, a young Asian woman who grew up here at the synagogue, had her bat mitzvah here, moved to Israel, joined the army, has made her life there, and she's a particularly sweet human being. And the other is a young woman who came through our religious school, went to our high school, went to yeshiva in Israel for a year, decided to stay in Israel, married a young man in Israel. She's now got 4 kids or 5 kids, 4 kids that she's raising. Now they're all teenagers. I visited her when she was in yeshiva. I visited her when she was when she was in Israel. She is really an amazing, very religious. I mean, she's become more and as she's gone on, and I have a particularly close feeling for her. Name started out as Clara. It's now not Clara. It's now Chaya. One other little note about Chaya. Chaya and her husband were living for a period of time with, I think, her husband's uncle. Her husband's uncle was a scientist. And then it happened one morning that they got a call that he got the Nobel Prize. There are not too many Israelis that have won the Nobel Prize. A few of them have but won the Nobel Prize. And Chaya and her husband then became his secretary and sent out all the notes to all the scores of people that sent notes and he won. It wasn't in mathematics. He won a Nobel Prize for game theory, so maybe it was economics through game theory. But so again, March 9th, 10 o'clock in the morning. I think you'll find the programs about these 4 individuals who are going to speak about making Aliyah and living in Israel. It's a really wonderful program.
You know, speaking of Nobel Prizes, I would kill for a Nobel Peace Prize. It's a joke by Stephen Wright. I would kill for a Nobel Peace Prize. I love that one.
But
not mine.
we have a president that's politicking for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Rabbi Isaac, it's been an honor sharing the pulpit with you this Shabbat. I'm glad you're able to be here, but we're glad you're able to be here today. For those of you who came a little later, Rabbi Isaac almost didn't make it to services this evening, so it's good to see you here and in good health. Now, there was a request to do Adon Olam instead of Igdal, so let's turn to page 211. So there'll be a compromise. I'm going to set it, I'm going to go to Adon Olam on 211, so it's a more familiar text for some of you, but I'm going to set it to, there's a Sephardic tune for this that I'm going to do, that we do for Igdal or Adon Olam. If it were Igdal, it'd be Igdal Elohim Chai ve'ishtabach nimtza v'netel. And it's also to Adon Olam. And I also set that to the first song I ever sang to my daughter when I would push her around on the, in her stroller. Mia, 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 mia. Page 211, join me. Mia, mia, no. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד בן שני להמשיל לו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי וצרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אבקיד רוחי ואת אישה להעירה ועם רוחי גבייתי אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Yesher Koach, Cantor.
תהיה חזק וברוך.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Well, let's do the bread. We have challah to do. Let's do that. You want to do it?
No, go ahead, please.
ברוך אתה אדוני מלך העולם, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר הקשבנו בעצמנו, נטילת ידיים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Amen.
שבת שלום.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Please help yourself with some challah. Shalom.